You've got your compost pile going, all those fruits and vegetables scraps are coming to your compost bin. You're loving it, it's working. And you start to wonder, what about that mystery casserole I found at the back of the fridge, the kind of moldy one, or those bones that are left over from making chicken stock? I hate to throw those in the garbage. Can I compost meat? Can I compost dairy? Yes, you definitely can. And in this video, we're going to talk about how to compost meat and dairy without the stink, without any kind of mess or worry about pests. Hi, I'm Amy Landers with GardensThatMatter.com, where we help families create beautiful, bountiful gardens together. And part of having a garden is composting all of the organic waste so that you can build great soil and have a really sustainable home. So let's talk about how we're going to be able to compost meat and dairy safely. To do this, you're going to need three things. The first one is a large bin. You're going to want a bin that is about 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. What this does is it lets you build up enough mass that your compost pile is going to be one that is hot. You want to have a hot compost pile if you're doing dairy, meat, animal products. Manures are going to fall into this category too, because that heat is what's going to make sure that you don't have pathogen risks from the materials that you're putting in there. Now, what if you use a worm bin, a vermicompost bin, or a tumbler or a smaller compost bin? Does that mean you are out of luck and you can't compost meat and dairy? Well, I would definitely use caution before I add it to one of those smaller systems because it can overwhelm it really quickly. But what you can do is look at adding a bokashi bucket. A bokashi bucket uses anaerobic decomposition. It uses anaerobic microbes, so they don't need air. They're not doing hot thermophilic composting. The bokashi organisms are going to break down that meat, that dairy. All of that can go into a bokashi bucket, and it fits inside under your sink or in a garage in a smaller system. Now, if you have the bigger system and you've got outside piles, you've got wire bins or wooden pallets, then yes, we can put the meat in there, but there's a couple more things we're going to want to do. The second requirement is that you need to be at least 200 feet away from water. You don't want to have your compost bin right next to the stream, especially if you're going to put any kind of meat in it. Anything that kind of seeps out could enter the water supply. Not a good idea. So now you've got a large bin at least 3 feet around. You've got it at least 200 feet away from water. The third thing you're going to need is plenty of dry brown material. Leaves are great for this. Wood chips are great for this. You can also use things like shredded paper. You can even, if you're really low on these dry brown materials, you can purchase something like pine straw or straw from the feed store. You do want to make sure that any straw you bring onto your property is non-sprayed because there's some persistent herbicides. We'll talk about that in another video, but there's persistent herbicides you want to watch out for. So if you're going to bring straw in, make sure it's unsprayed straw. Now, why do you need all these dry browns? You're going to use them as your biofilter, your biological filter. We want to have at least 18 inches of material, dry brown material or compost that's already at work, 18 inches deep before we start putting any meat in the pile. That's going to help us make sure that anything that drips down out of this meat or dairy as it's decomposing is going to be absorbed and broken down before it has a chance to leach out of our compost pile. Now, once you have that 18-inch layer, you know that that's going to be safe to go in. You're going to also use a nice thick layer on top, and that's going to be your filter for any kind of smells that might be coming off of your meat or dairy. You're just going to dig down into the center of your pile. This is where it's going to be the most active, it's going to be the hottest. So you've got a nice depression, and then you're going to put that meat or dairy right in there, and then you're going to cover it up. You want to have a few inches of material. What am I going to do with this? And then you're going to cover it up. You want to make sure you have probably 6 to 8 inches on top of it. If there's a lot of pests where you live, you're going to want to cover it with something. A piece of tin or an enclosed bin would be ideal if you're really worried about something like raccoons or bears or dogs digging down in there. But with this dry brown material, we have a nice biofilter. It's in the center. It's going to be decomposing. And when I have more, I can come back and dig another hole, not quite so deep, maybe a little bit to the side, add my animal products, go ahead and mix it with some of those dry browns, cover it again, and keep going. Now, at the end of this process, when this compost pile is ready, some of those bones might still be there. So at that point, you have the choice to either sift those out, put them through the compost again, or just add them to the garden. They'll continue to break down in the garden. So now you know you can put meat and bones and dairy into your compost pile as long as you meet those 3 requirements. You're going to want to have a large pile at least 3 feet around. You're going to want to be 200 feet from water, and you're going to want to have plenty of those dry, coarse, brown materials to serve as your biological filter. Do you have more questions about what you can and can't compost, or about composting in general? Well, we've made it easy for you. In the description for this video, you'll find links to our website, gardensthatmatter.com. One of them is going to take you to a spot where you can sign up for the ins and outs of composting. This is a quick reference you can print to make it easy to know what can and can't go in the compost. You can also ask your own question about composting or gardening for me to answer in a future video. Thank you so much for watching today. If you want more garden goodness, be sure to subscribe. And if you know somebody else who's interested in composting, I'd love for you to share this video with them. Until I see you again, happy gardening.